From the bowels of the science complex, where freshmen are apt to get lost until they have to manage to get to autonomy and spend all their money from the large, grueling effort it is to get through the maze of the science complex. Was that a funny intro? It's the Absynthe Podcast! Tonight with me is my co-host, my best buddy. It's Mark Ellis, everybody!
Hi, guys.
And our guest tonight from Trent Jiu Jitsu, it's Josh Kraan? Say it again.
Kraan.
Say it louder.
Kraan.
Now say it backwards.
Narc?
That's why we can't trust you. You're a narc.
Well,
in backwards land.
I'm the reverse of a narc.
Hey, everybody. How you doing? It is 7 p.m. on Wednesday. That means it's time for the Absynthe Podcast. How you guys doing tonight?
Pretty good. How are you?
I'm doing all right. I mean, I'm pretty well energized. I pretty well bungled through the intro there. I figured that we needed to start with something a little bit scary, so I went in to talking about the science complex. Have you guys ever had classes actually in the basement of the science complex? Do you remember your first time trying to go down there? I got lost repetitively as a freshman.
I would, after class, if I had like enough time, I would purposefully get lost.
Just trying to look around.
Yeah.
It's the only
I'd
mysterious
go down
place
random
on Trent
hallways
University
and just,
campus.
keep going until I found myself back in places that I knew, and that's how I learned the school. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
It's got some really interesting architecture.
Wandering around down there is pretty awesome. I found like the sleep lab one day, and I found like the back
Yeah.
doors to
Oh, yeah.
Jack, and you're like, oh man.
Yeah.
So after lecture, everyone crams out the back door, the side door, and you just like slip through the back door. You're in the basement, and people are like, where'd he go? And then you're just gone. You come up at the bridge, and you see your whole class coming towards you because you've beaten them all there. But,
Yeah, shortcuts are the best.
Yeah. So wait, did you guys? So just a little bit quick introduction. Josh, you're now a Trenton alumni. Is that correct?
Yes, I'm an alumnus. I think.
Alumnus. Yeah, I guess that is
Singular.
so cool.
that
I
is
like
the
that.
singular, isn't it? You you missed being our first alumnus ever on the podcast by 1 week. So I apologize. However, you will get a little silver place medal and a moon pie at the end of the podcast.
Oh, sweet.
So did you guys, when you came to apply for Trent University, did you do an on-campus tour?
I did.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did a couple.
A couple of tours.
I think
So,
so,
they
yeah.
were guided tours, right? Like, you had someone there, or did you do
Yeah.
the self-guided tour?
Okay, so I think I went to both the open houses, and I think I
Okay.
might have picked up like a little bit of a tour there, but I went to see like all the residences and stuff because that's really what I thought was cool.
Yeah, okay. Josh, did you do the actual formal tour, or did you?
I did at some point. Yeah.
Yeah. That's for those who are listening to the audio podcast, which is the only podcast right now. Josh just stole a little bit of Mark's whiskey.
That's
which,
okay. We had that arranged.
Yeah.
It's Maker's Mark bourbon, so that's why I got it. It's like Maker's Mark and then
Ah.
Mark. So yeah, this is
great.
bourbon match made in heaven. So yeah. What? So yeah, no, I was trying to talk about the tour. So did you do a formal tour when you originally chose Trent, or where are you from, Josh? First of all,
I'm from a tiny town called Stainer.
Stainer.
It's like close to Wasaga Beach,
Okay.
Collingwood.
All right.
People
I'm a
know
small
where
town
those
boy
are.
myself.
Yeah.
And Josh is from Oshawa. I mean, Mark is from Oshawa. Josh, you're now from Oshawa.
Oh, okay.
Because I'm
Joshua
always
from
right. No,
Oshawa?
Mark, yeah.
He's not.
So I didn't have the opportunity to do a formal tour when I first saw Trent University. I had to do the self-guided tour, and it was like in fall. It was not necessarily the nicest time to see Trent if you'd never been there before.
I mean, if it's rainy and there's all these wet leaves everywhere and those red bricks get all slippery, you might think less of Trent, but
yeah. Well,
Yeah,
so
the slash couldn't.
that was my experience. Is that me and my
Yeah.
dad pulled up onto Trent University, and it was a little bit wet, little overcast, and so we did the self-guided tour, and we just started from LEC and worked our way over to DNA.
yeah.
But when we got to the middle where the science complex was, we're like, oh yeah, okay, science complex, that's great. And we saw the stairs, so we're like, oh, there's a basement, let's go down there. That would be a good idea. And just absolutely lost, me and my dad, for probably about 15 minutes, and it was terrible because everything looks the same. You're passing by the different
No, wait, man. Everything
corridors.
looks way different. Like,
It looks the same
buildings
and
are
different.
not
It's like getting
right
lost in a
angles or
wax
anything.
museum. It's just like everything around is eerily somehow like familiar, but it's all it's like a
kinda
maze in
empty
there.
too, right?
Okay.
Exactly,
If you
it's
catch it
empty.
at the wrong
There are a
time,
lot of
nothing's
corridors and
there.
stuff down there
Yeah.
too. I mean, yeah. So we found like the sleep labs and the back doors to Wenjack. Yeah. The back door's
Yeah.
Zazowski. It's like a little portal that you just like go through and you're in Zazowski all of a sudden. No.
That'd be neat.
Yeah. The corpse of a freshman who got lost down there and didn't quite find their way out. That was my first experience at Trent. And then I'm like, I need to come here and study here.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Actually, why aren't there tunnels that connect? Like,
Well,
there
I
aren't, are
mean,
there?
if you're in the science complex and you go like down through the basement, there is like a little wing that almost goes to Zowski, and then you can go through a little walkway and it goes towards the ground floor. So,
Okay.
or there's also it leads up to the top, and then you can cross over towards the cafeteria.
Bottom line is tunnels. Trent
Yeah.
needs more of them. Possibly under the river. Very popular request. I hear that coming when I'm just walking along. Someone will be in front of me and they'll be talking. They'll be like, you know what's great about tunnels? You don't need to see what's outside. We need tunnels under the river. You hear it a lot. It's pretty great.
I don't know. The fact
Yeah.
you have to go outside and like cross the bridge, I think that's pretty cool. But like, I remember during winter, I would never take my phone out because I was afraid that it would
Oh yeah,
fall
absolutely.
onto the ice and just right into the river.
It's even
and it'd be
worse
gone.
now. Like, okay, so the Trent,
Is this a good
the bridge looks great now, right? Like way better than it did a couple of years ago.
It
Um,
has a nice paint job. Yeah.
But the way that it is shaped now, it looks a little like a bowl, and even the ground you can see is like a little bowed. And so I
Yep.
always think when I have my phone out, my phone would just like hit it and then skid immediately off. It doesn't matter if it's covered with ice, nothing. It just looks like that's going to happen.
Oh yeah.
And the way that the railings are set up, they're also equally tilted. So I always have this like scary moment in my head that someone's going to come and just like push me over, and that's going to be the end of Tyler Holt.
See, I had also thought that before, and like, I kind of really took a good look at it, and basically, you can't unless you're like super super tall, because as long as your hips are not above the railing, you're not gonna magically get knocked over.
well, I mean, I think we're still pretty close to having that problem.
Yeah, but
I mean,
if you take into account like you falling,
the
there's an
angle,
angle,
is a
right?
bit there,
So-
yeah.
so it looks like it's shorter, but because of the angle, it's actually not quite that short.
We'll have to build a small mock-up, and we'll bring it into where we have mats, and we'll just push people over it and see what the prime heights are. Just for safety reasons. We'll report our findings to health and safety, just to make sure they can make sure the bridge is safe for future generations. Because yeah, I'm worried about that bridge taking me out at the knees and just toppling over most of the time. But
Okay, so Josh, you're joining us here from Trent Jiu Jitsu this evening. So I was thinking that maybe a good place to maybe kick off a little bit of the podcast would be talk a little bit about Jiu Jitsu, if you don't mind.
Sure. Like, what do you want to
okay,
know?
what's the nationality for jiu-jitsu? I'll ask the dumb questions. Just
Okay,
so
it's
we
it's
cover the
traditionally
basics.
it's traditionally a Japanese martial art. It's
Okay.
it's what the samurai would use when they lost their katana.
Tyler's a big fan of samurai, so
I like samurais, yeah,
yeah.
and katanas.
Okay, so
Not
martial
as
arts.
strong as you'd think. Like katanas, it's
Yeah,
they're fairly
no.
easy to snap.
Yeah, they can be definitely.
But they're heavily like in all movies and stuff. It's like you get a katana. It's like you have the golden gun, you know.
Yeah.
But in reality, they're very easy to break.
Well, yeah. Also, I mean, mostly when you see in movies and stuff, and they're the more rougher swords. What those actually are odachi, which is an actual stronger long sword that's
Huh.
more akin to a broadsword, where it still had cutting power, but a lot like a long sword or a broadsword. It was really
Yeah.
crushing, is what you were doing at that point.
That's fair.
Yeah, hitting
Yeah.
someone with a big steel bar, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So that was nationality, and then we need to cover what makes jiu-jitsu different from others. And I mean, this could take a while, but
Okay, well,
What's the main difference
in
between jiu-jitsu and why shouldn't I do Krav Maga? Answer
Krav
me this.
Maga,
Pub.
from what I understand, is like fairly brutal and effective, which is, I mean, by all means, that's cool. Very
It's
good
kind of the new
self-defense.
hotness in the martial arts world.
I mean,
I'm just,
kind of.
it's just a joke.
it's all right. It's around.
So
Yeah.
Krav
Right.
Maga, from what I understand, don't quote me on
Yeah.
this, and I know it's that we're on the air, but
Yeah, do it.
from what I understand, it's what the Israeli Defense Force developed as a martial art
Yes,
to
I
teach their
second.
soldiers.
Okay.
And it's very effective and very quick techniques. You know, you won't find any flying kicks or like crazy axe kicks or anything like that.
Okay.
It's
Because
more
it's
martial, less arts.
And so how does that?
trimmed
How does
out for just,
jujitsu
like,
answer
easy-
that? What would then the styling of jujitsu then be if it's?
Jiu-jitsu is well, at least our style. It really typically focuses on throws.
Okay.
Like as like a strong point, or at least
Yeah.
our club at Trent has for the last, however long I've been there. and
Yeah,
however
you
long
know,
you've been there.
3 years, 4 years kind of idea.
But we really, we try and give students as broad a spectrum as we can, while still keeping it relevant and effective.
Okay, but you wanted to know what was better, right?
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
I think we're going to
Sell me on this like a used
Yeah.
car salesman.
Absolutely, will do. So you have Krav Maga. That's great. You're gonna break people's bones and maim them horribly. You're gonna do a lot of damage. I've seen some like
A lot of ball kicks.
some sharp videos, and it's like, yep, it's effective, 100%. Wouldn't worry about it. But like when you're in a pub and like someone pushes you, you don't need to kick them in the balls, then break their 2 knees, and then possibly snap their
You don't
neck.
need to necessarily murder an
You don't need
individual
to,
in
like,
that moment.
Murderize them. You have a more appropriate level of response with
Yeah.
something like jiu-jitsu. You can just back up and be like, oh, okay, and then you can go into a wrist lock or something, knock the person down. And then you'll kneel on top of them, and be like, hey man, why were you pushing me? What's going on here? Okay, oh, you're just drunk. Okay, well, have a good night then. You can just get up and kind of walk away, and like, there,
Oh,
they
it-
haven't maimed this person.
It's great for like being able to control yourself and controlling. I mean, not like controlling others. That sounds bad, but
Well, when you're in a fight,
You subjugate
controlling
and
others.
humiliate them
Yeah, I
and
mean,
just control them,
well, I
which
mean,
is
okay,
actually a
so
lot
I
more
was-
effective and devastating than Krav Maga. I mean, in that you kill them with jiu-jitsu, they have to bear the mark of shame for the rest of their lives. When you're dead, you're dead, but when you're alive and having to bear the mark of shame, it's a little bit perpetuating.
Yeah, and yeah. It's
Okay,
So what you're
it's a-
saying is you like to humiliate people.
No, what I mean.
I'm joking.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
you
like,
got
I-
worried in there
I
for a
definitely
second.
like for instance, I work as a camp counselor
Yeah,
over
okay.
the summer, and some kid was like just kicking shins, and I
Oh,
wasn't
okay.
gonna let him kick my shin, and like just kind of lowered him to the ground, and he was like, "Whoa, what just happened?" And like
Yeah.
didn't hurt him at all, but like now this
So it's a
kid's
way to
not kicking
stop
shit.
conflict,
Yeah,
which is actually what a martial art really kind of is in today's day and age supposed to be.
you can
Is
be
a way
very,
to stop conflict.
You can be very gentle with jiu-jitsu if you want. It can also be martial enough that you'll take care of credible threats, and that's not a problem.
yeah. Like if someone obviously I'm gonna respond to a child kicking shins differently than I'll
Exactly.
respond to
A man with a
some guy
knife.
with a guy with a knife. Like
Yeah.
I'm gonna break the crap out of him, and then
Grab him and just put him on the ground. He's gonna go, "What happened? I don't understand. Was I being naughty? I'm sorry."
yeah.
Not
Yeah.
exactly.
So-
Yeah. So, that's actually kind of one of the funny things about martial arts is that. Well, how many years have you been doing jiu-jitsu now?
4.
4. And Mark, how
Maybe
many
5.
years now have you been
Yeah,
doing it
I've
then?
been doing it for about 3. I was a little bit slow starting my first year, but
Okay.
then after that, I've been making it out to the classes. Haven't done like all the extra like Josh has. I think you've been around a bit more. You graded a bit. Went to some green and aboves.
Yeah,
went to
yeah.
some events, boot camp maybe. Have you been to
Yeah.
boot camp?
Yeah, a few
so
times.
it's a little bit more experience there. Knows
Okay.
lots of good stuff.
Yeah, so that's kind of one of the funny things about modern martial arts is that people will train for years and years and years to prepare themselves for a fight that they're hoping that they never have, right? Like you could
Yeah.
spend
Yeah, it's a funny
like a
thing,
couple
right? Like,
decades training up and becoming like a weapon, a human weapon, and you
Yep.
just like that you never have to use that, or you're hoping you're never having to use that, right?
well, I don't know. I mean, I figured as a martial artist, there is an odd correlation between like learning how to, break people, throw people, pin people, whatever. And the more you know, the kind of the safer you become, because you just like, I don't know. I don't want to get into fights because I realize just how dangerous people can be, right?
Right.
So I just
Yep.
don't. I just want to diffuse the situation as much as possible. If it does get to a fight, I have something,
Yeah.
I can just use. But
Yeah.
I don't know where I was going with that, but
No, that's pretty good. I think
What
that
was
one
the
of
question again?
I think one of the funniest videos I've ever seen about jiu-jitsu was like a student had bothered the sensei about how to best take down someone with a sword, and so he gave someone a sword and was like, "This is the best way to do it." And the guy rose the sword up and he just ran.
Yep.
That
Yeah,
that makes enough sense. Why would you? I mean, it's not like they're gonna catch up to you with a sword in their hand with like
yeah,
10
yeah.
pieces of metal awkwardly swaying from
Yep.
side to side, right?
Yeah. Oh,
Yep.
yeah, absolutely. If like someone comes up to me in the let's say an alleyway with a knife, and they're like,
Yeah.
"Give me your money," and they're at enough distance, and I have an escape route, screw it, I'll just run away.
Yeah, why not?
Like I don't want to engage with somebody that has a sharp weapon because that's really dangerous.
Yeah.
So I'd rather just run away and
Yeah,
safe.
running away is good. The only thing that would ever stop a jiu-jitsu person from running away is being really lazy. I'm kidding, but that's the kind of route we take. Path of least resistance.
Yeah, kind of
Make
like
it as
squirrels,
easy for
right?
us as possible. So
Be like
you
water.
don't want to corner a squirrel, but like they're impossible to catch.
yeah, exactly. There you go. So what else can we do? We were doing nationality, and then we talked about some styles. We can do a little bit, maybe what makes it different or what makes it like jiu-jitsu. And I know that when we're talking historical applications, if you take something like karate, which focuses on striking and kicks, from what I understand, and the other martial arts that do focus on things like that, and then you apply that to fighting a samurai who's in like a full plate armor or like a full set of heavy armor of the time, you realize your kicks and punches are now laughable as you punch their metal and break your hand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then you
As
realize
opposed to like if you toss them to the ground, then they're suddenly weaving around on the ground like an egg, right? You know,
Yeah.
knight in shining armor doesn't look so cool when he's covered in mud, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So when you talk about, things jiu-jitsu wants to specialize in or focus on maybe a little bit, you talk about locks and throws. So, if
Yeah,
a
for
guy's
sure.
in heavy armor, sure, you can still get under his hips and throw him, no problem. He lands on the ground, all of a sudden you have a big advantage because he's in armor and on the ground. So
Yeah.
great. It gives you a lot of options there, and
And then you take out your wakizashi and slash him in the throat.
Oh,
that sounds just about historical. Yeah, something along those
I think
lines, probably.
I read somewhere, or
Assuming we're
heard somewhere
samurai
that,
warriors.
that when you're fighting like a knight, like a European knight or a samurai warrior, a sword, from what I understand, isn't necessarily going to kill them. It's your dirk or your little knife. You get them, you throw them or whatever, and then you stab them with the knife in like the one spot in their armor that you can stab through.
Yeah, I do. I see that as a theme, and I've heard a lot of different people who like to talk about knights and how people died in medieval ages, talk about that. And yeah, a lot of time it's throw the person down and then quickly slide this dagger into their neck. Sorry, you thought that big fancy sword you had was going to kill them? No, it wasn't. It was just going to knock them down.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's like most violence in movies. It's very inaccurate and highly Hollywoodized. Like guns in movies. You ever notice how many times their finger is inside the trigger guard? It's awful. And like pistols, being able to just get someone at like a kilometer away because they're just like, oh, the hero. It's ridiculous.
It's Hollywood magic. It adds to their abilities, but
I just pocket dialed Caitlin.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Pocket dialing friends.
I was getting up to just check something on the stream, and I pocket dialed Caitlin. That's what happened
well.
just now.
Careful,
I
they
was
might call you
listening.
back.
That was kind of crazy because I went over and because she had sent me a quick text message that she wasn't able to comment on the video, which I think is up. We're getting a call in from Caitlin. Hi, Caitlin.
Hey.
You're live on the Absynthe podcast.
I sort of figured that I missed that. Hi, everyone. I'm in the quiet part of the library.
Now, be nice to the call-in guests, Tyler.
Bye, Caitlin.
Bye.
Yeah.
Caitlin McMullen, everyone. Tune in this time next week, so because she's going to be on the podcast.
Yes.
Plugging the podcast on the podcast.
Talking about. You have to, Are we enticing them with the next week's topic, or are we
Next week's
throw it in
topic?
at
No,
the
we'll
end?
continue on with jiu-jitsu.
All
I
right,
was just
fair
like, she was saying that she couldn't comment on the side on the video, but I thought that there are comments right on the side. It seems like I can comment. I don't know why she couldn't. Maybe she's a scrub.
Ouch, that's kind of mean.
That is.
I think I don't know.
And
That's
by scrub, I mean her hair looks like Brillo. Like a Brillo pad. That's scrubs, isn't it? No, I'm joking.
Confused.
She has
Let's
very
talk
nice
about
hair.
jiu-jitsu.
Let's continue on from that tangent. Yeah, so jiu-jitsu.
I don't know. What else do we like about jiu-jitsu? I mean, I know one day we were all sitting at the pub, possibly the Old Stone, which has been mentioned on the podcast multiple times as a great place to eat and get food.
It is. Definitely is.
And it was one of the sensei there, I think, and he's like, "Yeah, why does everyone do jiu-jitsu?" Because he kind of looked around and he realized like no one sitting at the table actually did jiu-jitsu for their self-defense. We all did it for like different reasons, and most of the time it was like, well, we find jiu-jitsu really fun, or I like the exercise, or it helps me focus, and like a lot of those answers came up. So I don't know. I thought that was a neat kind of feature, I guess.
Yeah, for
in
sure.
that.
I mean, like at a certain point, you kind of hit, the point where you're comfortable with like self-defense, and then
Yeah.
you're in it for something else, right?
In it for self-perfection or self-improvement, and all that good stuff. Or if you feel like you're likely to intervene in a fight, but realize you'd probably just get yourself hurt, and you're like, I want to train so I won't get myself hurt as badly when I try to help someone else out that I feel like should be helped.
Yeah.
That's certainly that's kind of what I was in it for a little bit. And I was like, man, jujitsu, I've always wanted to do martial arts. This is like as close to ninjutsu as I'm gonna get without,
It's like
traveling the world. So
Batman basically.
yeah,
Right?
like if I can be Batman, like great.
That's pretty sweet.
People may laugh at my philosophy degree, and then I'll see if they want to fight, but they probably won't. So it's good.
See if they want to fight, defuse the fight, walk away.
Walk away, and then
Just
when
leave
they
them angry.
then when they decide to come beat me up about my philosophy degree, then they'll find out that I walked away from university with more than a philosophy degree. No,
Major in philosophy, emphasis in kick-ass.
something like that, yeah. So
Yeah.
that was a lot of fun.
So what's your belt, if you don't mind me asking, Josh?
I'm a dark blue belt.
Dark blue belt. Okay.
It looks
So that
so
means
good.
that. Well, thank you.
You mean
So-
cobalt?
Cobalt. No, I'm not sure what cobalt would be on that. That's like a medium blue, isn't it?
Isn't it dark? I don't know. Men are naturally colorblind, so.
This is
we
true.
got
Yeah.
the light blue
That-
and the
that
dark blue.
shriveled white.
So dark
comes
blue,
off.
what exactly does that mean?
Means that I got 2 more belts before I can be black belt,
Okay.
or like it goes
That's a pretty
dark
good
blue,
contextualization.
brown belt, and then black. That's
Yeah.
Everybody uses the black belt as
The metric.
right.
Right.
Everyone- Yeah.
Like if you say, "Oh yeah, I'm a dark blue belt," people are like, "Oh yeah, okay. Where's that? in
Where
relation
is
to
it?
black?" Like,
It doesn't help
Right.
that other systems do like different colors.
yeah.
'Cause like
No, every system does a different color.
yeah, judo like dark blue belt is like the second belt you get or something. I'm probably totally wrong with that, but I know like there's a
It
few
all
and
has
it's
to
just
do
like
with like
that.
formal institutions. Some people really criticize the use of the belt, like
Big time, yep.
Oh, there's definitely some dojos that don't even have any color but white and black.
yeah, and
You
that's
just, like, at a
fine
certain
and
point,
all.
you just like
I think
get a
that
black
some of
belt.
that idea was a little bit popularized in the Karate Kid movie, where Daniel San's like, "Where's my belt? When do I get a black belt?" And then Mr. Miyagi's just like, "Here's a belt. It's black."
Yeah, he just, like,
But the
steals it or
reality
something.
is that almost all combat sports use that sort of system. Even fencing does, where in
Okay.
reality it's just a way to be able to kind of like track your progress and understand like a. It also helps teachers, right? So things that individuals on a lower scale learn, then there's more advanced techniques that you need to have a better formation for. It's like even considering running, you need to be able to sprint a certain distance or run a certain distance before you start getting into things like hurdles or something like that, or a
Right.
different I would run 6 miles a day, even though I was doing the 800 meter sprint. So
Right.
I had to have a really big base to then be able to zoom in. It's the same thing with any other sort of martial sport. I think that sometimes the belts get a bad rap. Really, it's just a way of measuring different skills in a way that's conducive to both the teacher and the student.
Yeah, well, I mean, like, if I was to look at, like, let's just say the class at, like, Trent, and I was to see, just white belts and black belts, basically, and, like, maybe I'd bump, like, our seniors, like you, Josh, and, like, put you in, like, a black belt, and then, like, it would be like, well, how do I look any different from the novice? Like, I've done this for 3 years. I only have an orange belt right now. That's
Right.
fine, though. But I'm going to be able to do a lot more than some people who just walked in, and we're going to look the same. So, yeah, I guess with belts, it can help you make sure that the instruction matches what the person should be doing at that point, so as to promote safety and things, as far as break falling out of throws that you've
Yeah.
seen before, that
Yeah,
you can
for sure. You don't-
successfully fall out of, and
I'm
not
not
hurt
going to
yourself.
throw you in like a dark blue belt throw because
Yeah,
you'll just be broken, and then
and then
that'll be it.
you have nothing left to play with. Like,
yeah.
so you need.
Then
you
I
need
can't throw mark
friends.
anymore.
Exactly.
So it's good for the standardization, at least in our style. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, I've trained a little bit of judo, but
Cool.
not much else other than jiu-jitsu.
I used
So-
the word conducive wrong. I just
Did
thought
you?
used that
Huh.
word wrong. Thought I should come clean about that. I felt guilty.
Huh, I didn't
Felt
notice.
guilty.
No, okay, so that's great. So what made you want to get into jiu-jitsu?
My friend Hien told me about the throwathon, which will happen second semester.
Yeah, I think it's supposed to second semester. Yeah.
Where you just throw bitches?
It's a marathon, but with throws.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
okay.
you like
Is it a fundraiser of any sort, or
It is.
it is, yes.
what is it fundraising for? Is it for the club or a different cause?
Yeah, for the club to
For the
keep
club.
costs
Yeah.
low, basically.
Yeah, okay.
Just to keep it
'Cause-
accessible, so when people want to join, we have mats we can practice on and a space to do it in. So
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
great.
And And so you have like teams that will go on and off the mat on intervals, and it's usually like as many throws as you can get in 1 minute. So it's
Oh, okay.
So typically,
Pretty
like
cool.
you'll go up there and you'll have your two friends with you, and let's say it'll be like your turn. So your two friends will attack you for like a full minute, just
Yep.
like one person punches, you do a throw, the next person punches, you do a throw, the other person's back up punching you again, you do another throw, and you just like cycle through this for a minute. And like most people are pretty good; they get like at least 10 or more throws a session. I mean, that would be pretty.
Yeah.
That would be like 6 seconds a throw. I mean, if you're good, you can do more than that. No.
well, if you're being particularly artsy, but
Yeah,
I
it
guess you could do
depends on
that.
whether you're going for just like speed or whether you want to practice your throws.
Yeah.
But it's a lot of fun. It's pretty neat.
Anyway, so I saw my friend Kian.
Kian?
At the, yeah.
Okay.
At the throwathon, and I saw it, and I was like, "That's the most badass thing ever! I would totally want to do that." Because when I was a kid, I heard about, you always hear about like just using the opponent's balance and like off balancing them, and somehow winning against any opponent of any weight. And I was
And
like,
you're like-
that's a cool idea, and I never actually got anywhere with it. And then I saw this, and I was like, oh, that's actually what that is. So I went for it, and well, the next semester around, I jumped in as soon as I could.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Cool.
that's pretty cool.
And how much is it usually to do jujitsu?
Okay, it's $260 for both semesters, Tuesdays and Thursday nights for 2 hours, 8:30 to 10:30.
Yep.
2 hours each night. Or you can do like one semester where it would be $150 for the semester.
Okay.
To come out and train Tuesdays and Thursday nights. And as far as the price of martial arts goes, it's really good for Peterborough as far as competitive pricing goes.
Yeah, we
for
keep
the
it
amount of
pretty
training
cheap.
time.
Yeah.
So.
And so for newcomers, would they have to? What kind of hardware do they need to practice?
You need like gym shorts and like a shirt. You might not mind having like someone grip a bit, maybe. So like maybe an older T-shirt or something. That's all you really need to start practicing. And then if like
Okay.
I
yeah,
really like this,
no jewelry or
Yes,
anything like
so
that.
leave
We
off
just
the
don't want
jewelry
people
and
to
stuff.
Keep
you
your
know,
hair, I'm gonna guess, in some sort of ponytail or something like that.
Yeah, if you have like big chains off your pants, it's probably not the greatest idea.
That would be the weirdest kind of gym shorts to have. Is like, welcome back to 2005, where we have chain wallets.
Oh man, yeah. All right.
Yeah, that was a thing. I remember
So
that.
when do you get your gi? Then when is it?
Okay, so you can order your gi if you're actually interested
Immediately.
in jiu-jitsu. And
Yeah.
yeah,
It's like- This is my life now. You
Yeah,
don't
we-
even
we-
order one gi, order like 3 gis, so you
Yeah.
can.
some people, way up there. Would,
I've
would,
got
would
2 gi. It's
consider
nice
that.
to
Yeah.
not have to do laundry between.
Yeah.
Laundry is tough. You don't want to go into the mats with a wet gi you just washed that morning. Done it twice now. I've messed up and washed my gi day of and just hoped it would dry. It didn't dry.
Or every once in a while, you'll be wearing it again after not washing it, and you'll really regret it.
Yeah, you'll
Doesn't
notice
happen
and you're like,
very
oh.
often. I don't want people to think that this is like that I'm just
Come
like,
out
oh
to
yeah, going
jujitsu,
in, look.
grapple smelly people.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, it's you're not
Everyone's
encouraged.
rather clean.
Yes.
All of those
Always-
gis are nice and
always rather
fancy
clean.
white.
Oh yeah.
What do you need to do to get like a blazing orange gi with a turtle emblem on the back like Goku?
Okay, so I think you need a regular gi and some orange dye.
Okay.
And
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that'll do
someone
it.
who can sew, and then somewhere to get a turtle emblem.
You know,
Yeah,
that's
pretty
really
much it.
interesting how you took that joke. You could have expanded on it and gone into some sort of jujitsu mythology, but you just took it really literally and killed the joke.
I'm sorry.
It's like you put it into a jujitsu hold and just strangled the life out of it.
Yeah, that was
Yeah,
basically
I
a
mean-
joke, right? That was about the same timing as like a good joke.
Yeah,
so.
that was the same. Good pace.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. We have joked about rainbow hakama once, 'cause we thought that would be a neat colors.
Yeah,
So
but
if-
Hakama are already black, so it's really hard
Yes,
to dye.
it's
but
true.
I
So
would
ha-
definitely like to see
So
that.
hakama are the really cool black pants you'll see some martial artists wearing, and
All right.
various different styles, not
Yeah,
just
Iaido
jujitsu.
does a lot
Yeah,
of Hakama stuff.
yeah. So those are hakama, and then we've thought about dyeing them like white essentially, and doing like a really cool tie-dye pattern on them as like the sensei's legs like whoosh around, with just like this whir of rainbow color that'll just mesmerize his enemies.
Well, I
it would be
think
neat.
the idea of the Hakama was to be able to hide your footwork,
Yes.
because back in the day when martial artist clubs were all like intercompetitive, like really intercompetitive,
Yeah.
you would like go to the other club to study how they
Did their
do their
throw.
stuff, which is all I mean, when it comes down to it, it's a lot of footwork.
Right.
So if you can hide your footwork from the other club's students, then you can like, I don't know, keep your technique secret or something.
Right.
Keep
Well, it's
you-
kind of like when you're doing football or something, is that you should look at their hips because that's where they're going to be moving next.
Yeah.
It's harder to juke someone up because your hips tell you where your legs are going. Or, in fencing, people will like swing their swords around, but really just watch their arm because then you know when they're going to extend their blade. Or
Yeah,
their
that's
wrists.
fair.
Their wrists are really telling because
Yeah.
that's exactly where the joint is where you're going to attack. So,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
People do swooshing movements like, Indiana Jones style, and
Yeah.
none of that matters until the moment they attack. So,
As long as you know what to look for, eh?
yeah.
That's pretty
So as
cool.
long as you don't miss the moment that they attack, everything else is just like bullshit.
That's
Yeah,
cool.
Okay.
Yeah. I imagine
Um,
there's probably some sort of flourish or something that you can also do in jiu-jitsu as kind of a feint.
Oh yeah, you can. I mean, well, if you go into judo, which is
Yeah.
the sport version of jiu-jitsu, essentially. Hi. Yeah, if you go into like judo, which is the sport version of jiu-jitsu, you have like you try and deke people out by being like, oh, I'm actually going for this throw. And
Yeah.
they counter it, and then you just throw them in a different one.
Grab their shoulder instead of their arm, and suddenly they're in 3 pieces.
Yeah.
Having
you know.
flying lessons, you mean?
Yeah.
I like to sell it as free flying lessons some days. When you go over a big shoulder throw, your legs go like scrape the ceiling way up there, and you like land, and you're like, "Whoa, that was amazing!" Assuming you remembered how to break fall, and you're not a little bit out of breath. But
Yeah.
that's the first thing we teach, so that's important. but-
Jiu-jitsu, go to Trent Jiu Jitsu. You'll learn a martial arts and how to fly. So not only
Yeah,
will you
that's
be a badass martial artist, but you'll also be part Rocky the Squirrel.
Pretty neat.
That's an
Oh, and
old
those are the
reference.
best when you just like when you can remember watching the room spin around.
Yeah.
Those are pretty good. So you mentioned the intercompetitive of clubs, like nature of clubs, and wanting to hide it that way. I thought that was really interesting. For me, I just thought like, okay, martial setting between two people, you don't want them to know where your feet are, or like kind of
Oh yeah,
you want
exactly.
that to be hidden slightly in just a competitive sense with one person. You mentioned it with clubs, which I thought was kind of interesting. It's definitely pretty neat. I feel like clubs are a lot friendlier now. Maybe I haven't
Yeah.
seen. I guess I've seen just.
At least from what I've seen.
Just-
anyway.
You don't
Jiu-jitsu
have very
Canada
many
stuff.
people barging into someone else's club demanding to fight the sensei and then burning their sign out in the street,
Yeah.
Yeah.
which is the convention that they used to do in dojos back in Japan.
Yeah.
That's what they used to do.
Holy
You would
crap.
walk into their dojo, you challenge their most talented student or their sensei, and if you won, they would burn the sign of the dojo.
Wow. That's
In
Wow,
the
that's,
street. Or at
That's
least
pretty
I know that
aggressive.
was popular in kendo. I don't know so much about
Oh.
jiu-jitsu, but I'm going to imagine that because jiu-jitsu was being taught around the same time as kendo. Well, I mean, far before. People didn't really teach modern kendo
Yeah.
until like the late 1800s. So.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that when it came down to sword fights, they just took out the real katanas and chopped each other. to
Yeah,
pieces.
yeah. Which is
They didn't
well,
use
because technically,
bamboo.
like kendo and satsujin ken, which is like the killing or art of sword fighting, that's what it was really taught of. And then
Oh,
what
yeah.
we know as kendo now, people use the shinai or bokto
Yeah.
for that kind of stuff. However, yeah, there were classically a lot of different places that used real katanas in there, like just not sharpened in their training. It's just like, don't get hit, bitch,
Yeah.
because
Wild
you
those
gonna get
days.
hit.
Yeah, I think that you can still get those unsharpened blades. What are they
Yeah.
called? Iaitos? Iaito? I know that in Iaito you can use unsharpened blades,
There's-
which are nice.
Daito is one word. However, I don't know exactly what that means. I've purchased a sponge sword that was for kind of like sparring, and that was called a daito. So I don't think that might be kind of like what I bought was a bastardization of the word, and so that could be what you're
Oh.
referring to. A bokto is a wooden sword, and
Yeah.
then the shinai is the bamboo
Yeah, you use in kendo, right?
in kendo.
It's cool. We have one of the wooden ones. Done
What's
some
that?
we have one of the wooden ones. We've
Yeah,
done
yeah.
some sword defense before. That's pretty fun. Besides just the running away. That's,
Yeah.
intrinsic in the lesson. Like, okay, kids, what's the first thing you do when you see a man with a sword in an alley? Run away. Yes, that's right. All right, now we'll go if you can't run away.
Yeah.
Here's where it gets cool.
This is when the guy corners you in the alley with a katana, 'cause
Yeah.
he has a katana for some reason.
Yeah. So do you guys have? Then you have obviously swords. Do you have other props like guns or knives that you practice against?
Yep. Yeah, we have training knives and kashes and one of the most typical weapons, at least in the UK, in bar fights, is a bottle.
Oh, okay.
So the first weapon we train with is a bottle because it's
Like you being used as a club or being used as like a shank?
yeah,
Oh,
use
okay,
it as
so,
a
yeah.
club. We
Okay.
get into sharps later, but
Okay.
first we deal with just
Blunt.
a simple weapon.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
do a water bottle with like a neck on it so somebody can hold it and use it like a club to like,
Okay.
go for a face. And then eventually it gets to broken bottle where the end's kind of cut off and, crumpled up because it's a plastic bottle.
Yeah.
To simulate they've broken this and they're going to try to stab you in probably the jugular or in the gut.
or the face
Right.
usually.
Or
People
the face, yeah.
a typical thing in fights is people just like go for the face because they're a lot of fights start because of high emotional state and
Right.
often also alcohol or something.
Yeah.
And
Spirits
so
run high.
usually I'm fighting you because I'm really angry at you and you focus on the person's face, so that's what you punch.
Right, because that's them.
That's the most personal thing about
Right.
it. Yeah.
Exactly.
That's
If
where
I'm
your
angry
anger's
at you,
being
I'm not gonna like
focused.
punch you in the gut because I don't.
Yeah, that's
When
not
I think of you, I don't think of your gut. I think of your face.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. And I feel
Little
like you hear the
psychology
people-
lesson.
The metaphors, they're like, oh, I just want to punch that person in the face. And it's like,
Yeah.
why the face? You could do so much more damage if you punch them in anywhere else. Like,
Yeah.
And the face is really hard too. Like if you punch someone in the face, your
Yeah.
hand is gonna hurt.
Yeah.
A lot.
It's hard on soft, and soft on hard when you're hitting something, right?
That is
That's what you wanna
exactly
do.
what we'll go with, yeah.
You go
Yeah.
like fist and elbow to stomach, but then like. That's why
Oh,
you
but
can
the
use-
elbow because like it's just incredibly hard. You
Yeah.
can't go for the
You can go for the face with the elbow.
listeners shouldn't be elbowing people in the face.
Yeah.
But
Don't take these
That's
and
rude
start
and
like
you don't make friends that way.
But also things like
Jiu-Jitsu's
karate
about
and
taking down the
taekwondo
conflict.
and things like that do a lot of conditioning,
Right.
so that basically you turn your hand and feet into rocks, and then you're beating someone's face with a rock, right?
Right.
So it's if you haven't punched things before, don't start punching someone in the face. Not a
yeah.
good idea.
Yeah. If you're curious
Don't punch
about-
people in the face.
Yeah, don't.
You'll
yeah.
break your hand.
Yeah,
and
if you're
then-
curious about how the hardening of knuckles works, you punch something really hard, so you break your knuckles, just like slightly hairline fractures kind of on your bones.
And then they just
And
continue
then,
hardening.
this little calcification thing comes out and repairs your bones, but it's like scar tissue for bones that's actually just as hard as your bones, and it makes them slightly larger and just stronger overall, so they just become
Interesting.
really strong,
Yeah, basically like rocks.
like
But,
rocks, and then just...
You got to be careful that you don't like bruise your hands, your joints too much because you
Yeah.
can get arthritis that way. Or
There you go.
Yeah.
yeah, I'm pretty sure you can. Either way, if you have arthritis, it'd be terrible.
Right. Yeah.
But I'm pretty sure you can get arthritis from like
I used to be like now that I'm 23, like things are popping everywhere. So my fingers, my elbows, my neck, even like my ankles.
Yep.
So I
can
was
feel
really
it.
worried for a long time that I was going to get arthritis until I looked it up, and apparently that's not a thing. You don't get arthritis from popping your joints.
Well, I actually asked a chiropractor about that once.
Yeah.
And he suggested like cracking your knuckles that way.
Oh,
like
pulling them
pulling-
as opposed
yeah.
to pushing them.
Because if you like bend them, then
That's
you're
still
creating
bending
like
the
a
joint.
pressure. Yeah, you're like I don't know, putting weird pressure on the joint. Whereas if you pull, you're not actually rubbing the bones against each other.
Interesting. Okay.
But he said like as long as it doesn't hurt, you're fine. If it hurts, you're causing damage, so don't do it if it hurts.
Right.
Pretty straightforward.
For
Good
more
advice.
chiropractic tips, what's your Twitter handle?
I don't have one. I kind of live under a rock. Like
Yeah.
not a whole lot of.
As best we can, we live under rocks.
Deflected that pretty quickly.
I'm also really busy though, so like
There is a...
I'm like currently
don't have
moving
time
to
to-
Toronto, so I like barely have enough time to contact friends to hang out or anything.
Yeah.
So,
So wait, what was your major?
environmental science.
Okay,
Or
that's
environmental and resource science, something like that. Yeah.
cool. So what made you choose Trent?
It's one of the few schools that actually specialize in environmental science.
True that.
Yep.
And actually, to be honest, it had really good architecture. Because I looked at, like, for instance, Waterloo.
Didn't like how it looked?
No.
No, that's fair.
Like, two of my brothers went to Waterloo. And so I, like, considered it. But I went there and I looked around and I was like, wow, if I'm around these buildings all the time in the winter, I'm going to, like, become really depressed. So, and then I saw Trent's campus and I was like,
There's
Man,
some
this looks
things that
good.
you're definitely really right about. Like, I really like the layout of Champlain,
yeah.
and I like how Lady Eaton looks. And recently Trent celebrated its 50th anniversary.
Yep.
And there was a huge exhibit by Ron Thum or
Ron
Thom.
Tom.
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 The H is just deleted from that last name. That's fine.
Well, it's like
Yeah,
Thomas.
Oh.
Right.
Doubting Thomas. And so yeah, there's a huge exposition of all of this stuff, and there's some things I just don't understand about Trent. Like the biggest thing that irritates me about the Trent University campus is the fucking stairs, man.
I
Like
don't know.
especially the
They look
stairs
cool.
at
They
Bata or
look
the
really
stairs
cool.
that go up from autonomy to DNA. It's just so we're all kind of long-legged fellows, so you don't go up the stairs step by step. You skip a step, don't you?
Oh yeah, I go by.
But
Yes,
all
of
of the stairs are long, so it's like they're not tall enough that you would go step by step, but they're so long that it's like an absolute fucking hassle to try and go. You have to like take a jumping leap, and then you look like a maniac froggering up the stairs.
I've still done it before.
It's just they're
Yeah.
so. Or you know what
when
also
you're late
puts
for
me off
class
is
or when you know the bus is gonna be there.
the
you
fucking
run.
stairs down off of the East Bank Bridge down towards the bottom of the science center or the science complex in Zoutsky. They fucking go on an angle. Why would you do that?
I can tell you why. I've heard the answer as to why.
What's the answer?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure how good an answer it is. But apparently, when Ron Tom was designing this stuff, he wanted to make you think about when you were on the stairs and just take notice of all these really little minor things.
And then
about
slip and fall
the
and break your ass.
I mean, you could do that maybe. If you go to Trent Jiu Jitsu, we'll teach you how to fall properly and lessen those damages.
So let's talk about that.
Exactly.
What do you mean when you say fall? Like I've seen people like slap the ground when they
Yep.
fall,
Yeah,
and
that's part
that
of it.
somehow magically makes it not hurt. So tell me a little bit about falling.
Okay, so there's two things there. There's one. You want me to do the humorous thing? I'll do
Absolutely,
the humorous
yeah.
thing. When you fall down, the ground has hit you, so you hit the ground back. That's why you slap. I mean,
I
it's
like
just
that
what
answer.
you do. You know, you fall, you hit the ground, ground hit you, you hit the ground back. Like it's just, you don't take that. You're better than the ground, so you hit it back. On
Yeah.
a more reasonable approach, we can explain, but
Well, I mean that kind of goes back to like, you can spend years turning your hands into rocks, or you can just like throw the person at the rocks. They're already there. They're everywhere, right? You don't have to go very far to find very hard
Right.
floor.
But why do you
so
slap the ground when you fall? I mean,
Oh.
why?
It's to dissipate the energy. Like it's part of break falling. It's not the only thing you do. If that's the only thing you do, you're
Right.
probably gonna get very badly hurt. But
Yep.
Okay. So wait. So dissipating the energy, kind of like spreading yourself out over ice, like it just increases the surface that's hitting the ground, and that helps. Or because I mean, if you're
That's
actually
certainly part of it.
slapping the ground, you're adding force to your fall, aren't you?
yeah, so you are, but you're also like it's to counter the rest of your body falling, right? You're hitting the ground in such a way that your hand is in good structure, so you're not gonna like break your hand.
Okay.
You are increasing your surface area as much as you can. I mean, I'll show you. I know that listeners can't
Okay.
see this, but
So what we're seeing here is a physical demonstration. Josh just fell down.
yeah,
And he's
so-
okay.
He's bleeding on the floor. No, go ahead.
Yeah, so you want to increase your surface area as much as possible. So you have like a straight leg. You land with your whole leg, your whole arm, not your head. Head is off the ground, and this hand, which also
Okay.
helps you to control your descent.
All right. Okay. That makes some sense.
So maybe that's
For everyone listening, and it won't make sense. Basically, what Josh did is that he made himself kind of like a C shape, where his leg was then able to be fully extended, and his arm. So instead of getting a crushing motion from his body onto his legs, it was kind of dissipating the energy out.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that
And
Make a
makes
I-
C
yeah.
shape with my left.
That's why
arm
I'm an
and
English
left
major. I'll
leg.
describe the shit out of things.
All right. Another way you could describe it, if I want to try my hand at this, is maybe if you've ever been little and you've been like running, and this is like elementary school or something, and you
Yeah.
fall forward, and you put both your hands straight out, and they touch the ground, and then your hands hit, and you get this horrible cramp in like your wrist or in your shoulder, or maybe you broke something. We work on a way to fall and use your arm to hit the ground that doesn't break your wrist or push your arm into your shoulder and break something up there. Just
Yeah.
a way that you can hit the ground, kind of like bend and meet the ground in a more gentle way, I guess.
Right.
I mean, like if you go onto YouTube and you look up, anything, judo does a lot of the same break falls. If you look in movies, you'll find that a lot of times someone has done a good break fall, and so the stunt performer is safe.
Mm-hmm.
but they don't get up, and so you see, the person do like a crazy big jump and like or flip and land on the ground, and they don't get up, so you just assume that they've been, and there's a loud crash when they do it, so you just assume that they're actually knocked out, but they're totally safe because of all the break falling stuff. So if you look in like any movie that has any throws, or if you look up judo stuff, jiu-jitsu stuff, you'll see what we just described in words.
So then beyond fighting, I guess then jiu-jitsu would have some practical applications for stunts.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Sure.
There's
For like being a stuntman or something like that.
There's a couple of Jitsuka out west in Vancouver that are stunt performers.
Okay. And I guess that's all intrinsic and like it's all wrapped up in how you're actually falling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That makes sense.
I've done like a little bit of stunt work at camp. I was one of Miss Frizzle's like that. It was like a skit
From the Magic School Bus?
from the Magic School Bus.
All right.
Awesome.
And I was like one of her former students. I was mad at her because what was it? I got like a D in math in grade
Probably
2 or
Carlos,
something.
little fucker.
No, I was Ken because
Oh, Ken,
I'd
okay. Or Arnold. You should have stayed home. That's his
It's like the only one
tagline.
I remember.
but I attacked Miss Frizzle, and we'd like planned this out beforehand.
Yeah.
I do all these strikes and stuff and miss her like every time, and then I go, prepare to meet oblivion, and she goes, what was it? I'm ready to face you and him. And
Nice.
I do like a big hammer fist to like head, and she shoulder throws me,
Yeah.
and like everybody in the audience is like, yeah, Miss Frizzle, this
Yeah.
is the best, and I like crawl.
What
around
camp
falling.
did
You
you,
got to
are
play
you
a
a
villain.
counselor at?
Camp Trillium
And where's that?
on the North Shore of Lake Ontario.
Okay. All right. So it's in Toronto then, right? Or somewhere close?
It's near Wellington.
Near okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. I was a camp counselor at Muskoka Woods for a while, and one week we took over the programming and we did a little it's a sports camp, and it's a pretty awesome sports camp. Like they have an incredible facility there with like a whole ropes course and paintball and
Oh, really?
marksmanship, archery, skiing, waterboarding, tubing. They even worked with some people to do go-karting and horseback riding. They had like golf to some degree.
Oh,
It was
yeah.
it was a fancy camp.
Fancy
From
ass
from
no
what
camp.
I've heard,
kidding.
yeah.
However, I was a counselor for like little kids.
Okay.
And one of the games that we played was literally just like find rocks. So we took a bunch of rocks and spray painted them different colors for points, and then just hid them everywhere around the camp. And that was the game. You would think it would be dumb, but I mean the kids loved it. Loved it. And then you would have bandits running around stopping them. And so for one of the programmings, we just tweaked it a little bit. So instead of like bandits, it was supervillains, and I was a supervillain fighting a guy in a Spider-Man outfit, and we did a little choreographed fight. However, when he kicked me and knocked me back, I landed badly on my back,
Oh.
and so for like I had this huge ass bump on my back right on my side. I had never experienced like a swelling in that kind of area. I thought I was
Ooh,
gonna
brutal.
die. It was bad, yeah. But I still played the entire game. I was like Mr.
all that counts.
Destructo or something like that, and I would stop by, and the counselors would like fight off the villains, or they would have to do like a task, like jumping jacks or something like that.
Oh, yeah.
And there was a giant ass rock that some kids would like carry around that was worth like 1 billion points, and they just wouldn't be able to pick it up.
Wow.
Yeah. Looking back on it, having kids carry heavy rocks and running away from people is probably not the safest game to play, but good camp.
Yeah.
Actually, seriously safe camp. Not a lot of kids got hurt at that camp.
Oh,
Really,
nice.
really safe. Yeah.
It's good.
Yeah, it's funny how like I don't know. Sometimes not that this happened a lot, but
Yeah.
sometimes you do a lot of what
You do
seems to be
outdoorsy
dangerous
things.
stuff. Yeah.
So, yeah, everything else was really safe. That was I was there for 2 summers. It was great.
Nice.
Really good experience. So how long have you been camp counseling?
Yeah, I did 2 summers worth.
2 summers worth. Mark, you ever go to camp?
I've been to a few camps through school, but what I'm realizing now is like all my friends and all these people I know are all camp counselors, and I'm not.
Hey man, you're a Don. That's basically a camp counselor.
Oh,
but,
yeah.
like, think about it.
Yeah.
That's
I mean-
basically true.
Yeah,
Even
guess
worse,
there's
it's like
some
we-
similarities there.
I
The
mean,
worst the
I'm
kid's
just
ever
out
gonna
of
get.
university, and I still consider myself a kid. So
Yeah, that's
first
fair.
years are basically
First
still high
years, parents are
schoolers.
gone. You can do whatever you like, kids.
Well, what's the worst
Yeah, it's the
shit
kids
that's
without
going to
parents.
happen to a kid, right, at camp? They're going to, like, have too much dessert and get, like, a sugar rush. What's the worst thing that's going to happen to a university kid? Alcohol poisoning.
Yeah,
Yep.
like
Yeah,
very
well,
serious.
yeah.
Right?
So,
It's definitely on the list.
yeah.
But yeah, if you consider that like a Don is kind of like a pseudo parent and sort of
Yeah.
camp counselor.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay,
Absolutely.
all right. I'll join your ranks and pretend.
You're like the adult camp
Oh,
counselor.
great.
Yeah.
Does that make me the fun one
Uncle
or the
Mark.
boring one?
don't
I never
know.
got to play with colored rocks, and actually that game sounds fun, so I think I'm the boring one.
We played this game once at camp. It was the name will explain it all. It's called Will It Float? You can literally go around.
They
and
had
be
a
like,
game like that
"Ooh,
they
that
played in
branch, will it
Salem for a
float?"
while.
Oh.
That got dark.
Took me a half a second to realize what you said there too. Well played.
I love that scene from Monty Python where they just like they're floating a duck and then a
Yeah.
witch and it's
Yeah.
What else floats? Really tiny rocks.
yeah.
Oh boy. Yeah.
I just recently showed Bickus Dickus to my partner Joy. She had never seen anything from what is that? It's like Life of Brian.
The Life of Brian.
Life
I
of
think,
Brian. I haven't seen it all yet. I need to. I've seen of course the Holy Grail. But I
Yeah.
haven't
yeah.
seen Life of Brian. I love the cheese shop skit that Monty Python does.
Oh,
Have you seen
yeah.
that one? It's great. Fantastic. Definitely check out all of these things on YouTube.
Yeah, for sure.
British humor is really, I think for North American audiences, British humor is very popular.
Yep.
Like you
Well,
wouldn't
how
think.
popular
well-
is it in Britain?
Well,
I think
I'd
it's pretty
imagine that.
popular in Britain, right? Like,
I don't know.
would
When
hope
I
so.
talked with my British friends, they were very in the know about North American comedians. And I
Huh.
think that a part of that goes with the programming. I haven't watched a lot of British programming, but from what I can tell about, especially like shows on the BBC and on other channels, it's a lot like Japanese programming where what they'll do is they'll have like celebrities and then a whole bunch of different comedians on different shows. So a
Huh.
comedian will host a show, like let's say, what about the Buzzcocks or whatever?
Right.
Buzzcocks is a show, and then they'll have
I'll
like-
take your word for it.
yeah, it's actually it's a fun show. It's like a quiz game show, and a lot of them are like game shows.
Okay.
And there'll be like 3 or 4 comedians, and then maybe another celebrity who will talk about their most recent movie or something that's coming out. So it's almost like a form of kind of like what we do with the Late Late Show or other talk shows, where the talk show is actually a comedian, and they're talking with celebrities to promote their most recent work.
Right.
And they come on for like 5 minutes and do that. And the same thing is in Japan. They'll have like a group of 3 or 4 different comedians. And usually these comedians are people who have like studied comedy in Osaka, because that's where like people in Osaka are considered to be funny. Like they know comedy. That's just a cultural thing.
Oh, you're from
Um,
a funny town, eh?
yeah.
I guess you could almost consider it like Osaka is the place in Japan, much like going to
Wait, do they call it the funny farm?
They don't. No, mostly because the funny farm is an English phrase, and I don't.
Yeah.
And they speak Japanese in Japan. But
Yeah, I guess.
there's also like you go to different comedy clubs that are really popular here in Canada. Like there's a place that's down towards the Rogers Stadium that's like I went to a show not too long ago. I can't believe I'm forgetting it. Like
Yeah.
City Lights or something like that,
Okay.
or
Silver City?
what? Say it again.
Silver City or something?
Silver City, something like that.
Yeah.
And there's one here and there's one in Chicago, and a lot of people who work there and do improv there end up going on to like SNL.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. So there's a lot of famous people that have been there, and it's been there since like for years and years and years and years. So really, really famous people. I wouldn't be surprised if like Jim Carrey worked there at some point or did a couple of gigs there. So
Have you ever been to, like, the comedians here in town, like the Cityots?
here in town in Peterborough,
Yeah.
I haven't. No.
Oh, the Cityots is the shit.
Where do they do their gigs?
Uh,
Is it usually at like the venue or
It's in the theater above, what is it, the Gordon Best Theater? Yeah, Gordon Best Theater.
Gordon
above
Best Theater?
the-
Oh, that could be
when do they
cool.
usually do shows? Is there like a website I can go to?
they're on Facebook.
Oh yeah.
For sure.
I've
Yeah.
never heard of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're the local comedy troupe, and it's some
That's awesome.
hilarious stuff.
That
Yeah,
sounds- that sounds good.
I fucking love improv. I'm all about it. I'm all about comedy. That's one of my favorite genres of anything. It's like comedy and dark horror. Those are the 2 things that I like the best.
What about-
Must
what
Love
about dark-
Dogs followed up immediately by Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
What about, like, dark like, have you seen Cabin in the Woods?
I have seen Cabin in the Woods. Actually, so
That
that's
is
something
some-
that we can talk about right now is that tomorrow, we just got hot off the press, and today is October the 5th. So October the 6th, the next October issue of the Absynthe magazine is going to be coming out. And in the Absynthe magazine, one of the articles that I personally wrote is top 10 movies that you should watch over October and leading up to Halloween. It's not really a top 10 list. Really, it's a concise list of a variety of different movies that kind of, they all have a lot of different things to come, like that they bring to the table. So I put The Shining in there and also Cabin in the Woods because it's a fantastic movie. So it's all spoiler free. So you can find that hopefully online either tomorrow night or on Friday, and you can find hard copies of the magazine there on campus. Got to go ahead and plug the actual physical magazine. That was great. Great,
Yeah,
Josh.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was well placed.
I'll pay you later. No, yeah, it was Cabin in the Woods is great. I love horror movies, and I'm beginning to love horror movies more and more. Just because, like, there's a whole bunch of really shitty ones, and then there's like,
That's
it
what I
seems
hear.
like there's shitty ones and they're masterpieces. There's no in between, really. So
Maybe
Well, I mean,
there's
there's
some
the
okay
ones that
ones.
are really funny that like kind of play on the masterpieces. Sometimes you can't tell if they're just like being shitty and cheesy, or if they're being cheesy on purpose.
well,
And
there's
I kinda
there's
that
cheese
stuff, you know?
and there's satire. However, what I would call Cabin in the Woods is a deconstructive film. It deconstructs the horror genre and makes
Yes.
something new and different.
Yeah.
And there have been a whole bunch of different movies now that have been a very intelligent look on horror. Like, I wouldn't necessarily really characterize The Witch as being a horror movie. It's more of a period piece thriller, but it definitely has horror aspects to it. It's a really good movie, critically acclaimed. I would watch it, just because it's kind of like it's art,
Right.
and that's a good thing to experience. But then also one of the movies that I also wrote about in my article is The Fly, Cronenberg film with Bloomberg. And something that's really interesting about that movie is that, and not a lot of other movies really explore this, is body horror.
Oh.
You can almost say that Saw does that, but that's more like gruesome gore as opposed to the body horror of the Cronenberg The Fly
Yeah.
movie, because you get to see, and just like the effects in that movie are incredible for the time. So go watch Cabin in the Woods and The Fly if you haven't, and also read the article so you can get 7 other great
Yeah, we
movie.
mentioned The Shining.
Or, yeah,
Right.
Shining's great. I like The Shining. It's one of probably the best Stephen King movies that's
Oh,
out.
I loved it.
I'm-
Like, it was creepy and awesome. And
Yeah.
I don't want to give anything away, so I'll
Yeah,
just
it's
not
great.
talk about it anymore.
Spoiler free, but yeah, there's
Spoiler
a lot of really great movies out there for horror.
I know one thing I want to interject about horror movies is I really want to see like there's like a legitimate like slasher horror movie or something, and
Yeah.
like there's
Wait, what
like
exactly is a slasher horror?
I
Is that
assume
like
someone
knives
using a
or-
knife
Okay,
and stabbing and killing people.
like
with all-
Halloween.
Slasher.
with all the blood, kind of like
Huh.
yeah.
I'd
Fre-
call Friday the
Freddy-
13th
Freddy
also a
Krueger,
slasher one.
that kind of stuff. I'm not well versed in horror movies, but
Yeah,
I would
that
love
is-
to
We'll
see.
fix you.
You know, there's the monster, the villain, killing off people one by one, and then he gets to somebody, and he just pulls out his knife and he stabs them, and they just go straight into wrist lock one, and then they just
Yeah,
stomp
yeah.
on the villain's face, and it's like, you got beat, dude. You got nothing. You had a knife. You thought that was enough?
Yeah,
you
you're
just
afraid to
kinda
take the
laugh.
knife from them, and then it's like,
Well,
well,
a
no,
really
I've got them.
humanizing, a film that really kind of uses a realistic and human frame like that for their movie, as opposed to the supernatural or unrealistic killer, is Don't Breathe, which came out
Right.
I think this past month. And you know what? God damn it! I'd say that was a good movie. I think it got something like 89 on Rotten Tomatoes, and I'd say that it definitely deserved it. It was a thoughtful horror movie. There were some things that fucking dragged on, and I got really upset with as the movie progressed. But overall, those kind of grievances that I had were very few. The majority of the movie, like usually after the first 15 minutes, first 15 minutes of a horror movie is establishing everything. Like,
Right.
here are all the characters. Here's the virgin. Here's the black guy. Here's the jock. Here's the geek.
What was it in Cabin in the Woods?
Yeah,
It was,
exactly. They do something like that a little bit with those sorts of movies. But what I'm trying to get at is that they'll do all the establishing very early in the movie, and then they don't have anything else to do for the rest of the movie. There's no other plot. Nothing is as
Oh,
ingrained. And what's really kind of funny is that a lot of horror movies that do that have a lot of room to fill. Like, they have a lot. Like, one of the movies that I was definitely very disappointed with, and it was kind of originally I would say more of an experiment on what you can do with lighting and sound to scare people, which is When a Stranger Calls.
Okay.
And that was one of the first horror movies I think I ever seriously watched on my own, because it was one that it was one of the first that was advertised as like, scaring audiences everywhere, and it became kind of a meme of like, where are the children kind of thing. And I got through like 2 or 3 scares, like, oh wow, this is really freaking me out. And they're doing some really good stuff here where it's just like, oh yeah, there's nothing, it's just creepy music or the framing, and they used a lot of that, and it was good as far as like an art project goes. But then halfway through the film, you're like, fuck, what's going on? Who is this asshole? First of all, why does it matter? Why is no one at the fucking house? She called the police like a half hour ago. They should have been here at least 10 minutes ago.
There's always that, yeah.
Maybe they
I would-
got to the police too.
I would say police response time is what, 15, 20 minutes if you're...
I don't know. Is
It depends
rural?
on the situation. I did hear a funny joke. It was like one of the internet kind of email jokes that your parents will tell you or whatever. It's about like an old guy in like Michigan or something, and there he is, out kind of slightly rural edge of town or whatever, and he sees some people breaking into his back shed, and he's like, these people again, like, come on, this is ridiculous. So he calls up the police, and he's like, I got intruders, breaking into my shed or whatever, and they're like, oh yeah, there'll be a car out there in like half an hour or so, and he's kind of like, screw this, I want these guys caught, like, they'll be gone in half an hour, this is dumb. So he calls 911 back, he says, yeah, well, I shot all the guys that were, I shot them all. They were, breaking into my shed. The dogs are out back eating them now. So, he got the SWAT team and 4 or 5, trooper cars and, like, paramedics all rushed to his house, like, immediately. Like, no delay. And they're like, oh, why did you tell us you shot them? He's like, why'd you tell me you didn't have any cars available?
Yeah.
It's kinda like,
I wonder what the response time for Peterborough is. I mean, we don't have an incredible amount of crime, but you do hear about some crazy stuff happening, like a couple of home invasions or like people with a
Oh,
gun.
really?
Yeah, just like 2 months ago, there was a police call, and they like shut down a part of Hunter Street because they got a call, and some asshole was just like firing a gun downtown.
Holy shit!
Yeah.
wow.
I had no idea.
Yeah. It was, it was a minor incident, I think, but I mean, still crazy shit does happen. I mean, it's still a city,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah, it's like it's kind of an odd mix of different demographics, but there's certainly
that's always been what I say about Peterborough. Is the demographic here is so crazy because you just get a little bit of everything.
yeah. But I haven't heard a whole lot about gun violence, but I know that
No,
knife violence is like certainly a problem.
is it?
Well, it has been in the past anyway.
Yeah.
I've read a couple of reports and stuff, but
They don't usually publish a lot of that kind of stuff in the newspaper, as far as I know, like local. Arrests
I saw
and
it
things?
I can't remember what it is anymore, but there was definitely one
Peterborough
on.
Examiner?
I think so. Yeah.
Are there laws against publishing things like who got caught or when or different calls and stuff like that in the newspaper?
I think
Definitely not for minor. Like you're not allowed to publish like a minor's name.
Right.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because back in my hometown, we used to have this thing in the INEO register called the badge byline, and sometimes I read that just because it was horrifying. Like a guy
like the 10 o'clock
who
news.
was like biking without a helmet got pulled over, and it was found that his backpack was like full of meth. It's like, what the fuck? Or like a lady had felt like she was being followed when she went to go and care for her horses, and then the next day found the horse like its neck was stabbed a whole bunch of times. Horse that turned out to be fine, but like, or just
An
like
impressive
crazy
horse.
shit, right? So I
Weird.
haven't seen any equivalent like that in any newspapers. However, there aren't really very many. Like, I see the Examiner around a couple of times. However, I haven't really. I pick it up occasionally. Nothing
Right.
really necessarily grabs my eye about it, to be completely honest. Kawartha now has a pretty active website. I've seen a lot of Electric City popping up recently, and they
Yeah,
have
yeah.
fantastic covers. So, yeah. And then of course there's the Arthur and the Absynthe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And every once in a while, does the Newfangled still come out?
I don't think so. No.
Oh,
Newfangled was
The Newfangled. Tell me about this. I don't know about this.
It was like some crazy art zine. You know what zines are, right? It's like
yeah,
homemade
Christian
newspaper.
Wigglesworth, who was a previous member of the Absynthe, he was doing a lot of work with that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I was wondering about that.
Yeah.
But I remember finding some of their stuff, and it's always like, I don't know, just weird shit. And
Yeah.
really cool, like poetry on the inside.
They
and
did
they're
some sort of
weird.
thing. Like, I think the biggest time that they became noticeable on campus is they published one called God is Dead.
Yep,
and it was
yep, I
on.
got that one.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it was
I
like
saw that.
it was a whole bunch of parody and satire, and as I understand it, not someone who was in the Christian group on campus, but someone who was like had showed up to the club a couple of times and had Christian beliefs was going to burn the Newfangled. And it's just, it demonstrates to me a complete like stupidity, really, about not being able to interpret art. Something that happened last year with one of Sia's music videos, for instance. She did Elastic Heart, and it was a very artistic number with interpretive dance. Shia LaBeouf was a part of it, and then the girl who normally represents Sia, who's a younger girl. I think she's like 12 or maybe like 14 even. And they did an interpretive dance, and they were both wearing flesh leotards and things like that, and they were in a cage. It was very, very artistic, and it was very, very, it invoked a lot of emotions, but the knee-jerk reaction from a certain percentage of the population was like, this feels like pedophilic or wrong or like sexual in some way, and seeing those sorts of comments made me physically angry. It's like, do you not understand what art is? I mean, there's a certain degree where...
what's wrong with sexual...
Well, I mean,
right?
like sexual stuff, yes, but we're talking about like what they were trying to pull out was that there was a full-grown man and a underage girl in the video, and they were trying to make something. Yeah, so that's what they were saying, that it was pedophilic in some ways, and it's just, it made me angry that they weren't able to. I mean, there's some things in modern art or interpretive dance just don't fucking make sense,
right?
But it's. You don't ever try and think very much. If it doesn't make sense, then you don't extrapolate like, oh, this individual who's contorting their body and is playing the xylophone backwards to like a beat of a music beat synthesized down from Drake's newest album. It's like, no, you're not pulling out and like, oh, this person is obviously anti-Semitic in some way. It's you're not doing any sort of interpretation there. You're not allowing your mind to be able to go like, oh, this is obviously an art project of some sort, and it has an actual meaning behind it. I mean, there's definitely art that's been published that is not good and doesn't have good messages, but
for sure.
it's the same thing with the Newfangled, where it was just like, that was such a bad reaction to have. It was just absolutely without any sort of intellectual...
Well, I mean, like book burning.
Exactly.
Typically not
also that. You don't burn literature. Don't do that.
Can I put in just like some biased funnies here? Because like, if I was to
Do
ever
it.
write a book, I don't want to be controversial necessarily, but if I write a book, I want people to burn my book, because guess what? They have to buy it first.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
I feel like that's just such a win. It's like, oh, you want to burn that?
Bestseller. Half of them are now Tinder.
Like, what do you care though, right? Like,
Yeah.
Burning through the wall, it's burning through the...
Well, it was
something
silly that they got that kind of knee-jerk reaction where you're taking something like that down. It's
what's fair?
Yeah.
Recently we mentioned there was one of the photos from Vietnam of the girl like running from the napalm strike or whatever.
Yeah,
It's like a little girl and she's like totally naked, and it was like, feature like amazing.
Yeah, because that was the
filmmaking.
Allies that...
Like, this picture was like,
Americans
some people are like, this picture is what ended, the Korean or the
Vietnam War.
And then apparently it was republished again, but it was they cut off the bottom of the picture so you couldn't see like the bottom of the girl, and they like censored her slightly, and it just really changed like the meaning of the picture. And a lot of people actually went back and they're like, actually, you can't change that picture. Needs to be seen in its entirety.
Right.
Like, you can't cover anything up about it. It just needs to be seen in its entirety as a piece of...
Well, hadn't like
Well, no one's
hadn't her clothes like literally been burned off?
I think so. It was a pretty graphic shot.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Of course, there's a
Not a happy
correlation of
picture.
like nudity and sexuality, because
And,
most
yeah.
people, when they have sex, are usually naked, and
Yeah, to
there's
some degree, yeah.
there's no, like, there's so many examples of nudity being used in art or nudity being used in a non-sexual way that it really makes me kind of concerned for the individuals who are calling for the censorship of those sorts of things. Like, what's going on in your mind? Maybe like if you were a new mother, possibly,
Right.
or a new parent. Let's
I
make
don't know,
it
man. Like,
non-gendered,
in-
but maybe they would be a little bit more sensitive to that. But just because of that, it makes me feel like those sorts of people have something going on where it's, what is this sort of anxiety? Because let's be real, only sickos are like masturbating to Schindler's List, right? When it chronicles a real serious historical event where, it's they're showing the fucking Holocaust, and people were hauled into gas chambers naked, and they're depicting that in a visceral way because that's how it was. And so the censorship of that sort of thing, it's like you're taking away from reality, and the reality is that we have bodies,
Yeah.
and the existence of those bodies is what facilitates our experience of life, right? Because we're all about perception. And if you're we could go on for hours
I
about
could
art,
share
right?
a quick story about this.
Go for
I
it.
think it's a division between North America and Europe slightly. I think we
Yeah.
have
Yeah, I've got another. Yeah,
we're all like
yeah.
triple R ratings. It's like you saw one boob. It's like triple R movie. Like
Yeah, fuck the MPAA.
So there's that, but so I have German on my mother's side, and when she was in like high school or I guess elementary school, they were asked to do like a magazine cut up and collage.
Okay.
So she brought in a bunch of German magazines from her house, from her parents, and like German magazines have like naked guys stepping out of the shower for like a cigar ad, and just like they have naked people in them. Like that's a thing you occasionally see.
Yeah,
is
I'm pretty
naked
sure that
people.
nude beaches
Okay.
are like just an ordinary thing.
Yeah, like
in
nude
a lot of
beaches and that
Europe
kind of thing.
certainly
And yeah, of
Germany.
course, like my mom brings this stuff into school, and the teacher's like, what? No,
Yeah.
no, take those home. No,
What?
absolutely
Dicks?"
not." Like, just kind of a complete, like, I guess, a little bit of culture shock kind of idea. Just kind of like,
Yeah.
it's just not what the magazines they thought the kid would be bringing in, I guess.
Yeah.
But, you know.
It's same thing in Japan. They have, like, not in the magazines or stuff, but you'll definitely see in videos, it'll just be like naked people, or there'll be, I saw a prank video once, which is, pranks are really popular in Japan, or their prank stuff that's kind of like just for gags, how it is in, is here. And it was just like a person who was going into a public toilet, which is something that's also common in Japan to see. And then when they got into the toilet and like dropped their drawers, the toilet just rose and the walls fell away, and they were just like 15 feet in the air. And that would be a lawsuit here. But there, they were just like, what's going on? Oh, I'm on TV. You got me. You got me with my dick out. Ha ha. Classic Japan.
I mean, like one of my cousins was in Holland. And,
Yeah.
You know, some guy rode by on a bike and just like totally naked. Nobody even
That's
batted an
fucking
eye.
weird.
And no, it's just like people will just be naked. or
Everything
whatever,
else
it's
was
fine.
normal, but riding a bike while you're naked, there's going to be stuff riding up into stuff.
I don't know what
Okay.
kind of scene,
Okay.
but anyway, like whoever
Which
was with
ways
her-
do the balls go in that
Yeah.
in that sense? Are you leaning them to the left or leaning them to the right? Or are you trying to like split the don't split the difference on a bike? You're gonna end up with having a bad day.
But whoever was taking care of it was just like, well, there you go. There's like sex education. you know.
Yeah,
There's
Yep.
nothing wrong with. I mean, we all.
it's all about
the-
perception, right?
Yeah.
No, big
Yeah,
time.
it's huge, and North America has been kind of really afflicted by this negative connotation that we've prescribed to sexuality.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's kind. Did you ever see the movie Euro Trip? I
No,
remember seeing it when I was like 15 or something, and one of the running jokes in that is that Americans were just like all the fucking prudes from Europe who couldn't deal with the wild, crazy sex who came over to America, and it kind of makes some sense now that I'm an adult. When I was a kid, it's like, haha, that's kind of funny, but totally false. And then I'm an adult, I'm like, haha, oh my god. They were totally right. This wasn't a joke at all. They were out in the field screaming the truth, and I was too young to listen to them. Yeah. So it's a good comedy movie. I think that's one of the only, like, there are comedy movies that really just get views and ratings because they have boobs in them, and that's one of those movies. But of those movies, I have to say that's probably one of the better ones.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Like, usually you don't just throw tits out there in a comedy movie and just be like, yeah, hey, look, they're there. And it's
Yeah,
you
yeah.
don't have a good movie for that, right? You automatically know as soon as you see that. It's like, oh, I guess that's what I paid for, right? Because there's no comedy here. I guess that's it. All right, okay.
So you're
suppose.
just like, I don't know. Isn't that why you just buy pornography? Right? Like,
You buy pornography, you fucking
well,
freak.
no. Like if you're gonna buy, if you're gonna be spending your money on that anyway, you might as well just actually just go ahead.
Essentially,
and buy
no
the
beating
real
around
deal.
the bush. Yeah, it's like if
Yeah.
you want something, just go.
Okay,
get
so
that
here's a
thing.
really great question. What is the most, like, completely inappropriate, like, sexually gratuitous scene that you've ever seen in a movie where it's just like you're watching the movie and out of fucking left field comes this, like, particularly, and it doesn't
That
have to be
happens
necessarily
fair
a
bit in
sex
Game of
scene.
Thrones,
It just has to be.
right?
Game of Thrones has sex there for a very specific reason. It's so that you don't
Yeah.
fall asleep while they're explaining shit.
I don't know. I like Game of Thrones.
It's called sex position.
I would have to say.
Oh, wait a second.
Expedition in sex.
Does that mean that every time there's sex, there should also be some sort of really interesting?
We'll take, for
explanation?
instance, Littlefinger when he's explaining his background. He has like two
Yep.
girls fingering each other on a couch, and it's like, I'm going to talk about my love life now and my motivations for the series. You girls just kind of sit there and
Ah.
keep the audience occupied.
I never noticed.
I loved Caitlyn,
That-
but I was a small boy and I got my ass beat. Yeah, that's how it happened.
yeah,
Yeah.
good point. I'll notice that from now on when I'm
Yeah.
watching it.
It really kind of cut down on it because it's become a better and better show. I mean, it was
Oh.
a good show to begin with. Ever since they
Yeah, for
killed
sure.
Sean Bean, I was like, this show is the best fucking thing in the world.
Yeah, pretty much, right?
They crossed a big major line where it's like, look at the main character. He's not the main character anymore. Who's the main character? There are no main characters.
Yeah.
Everyone's going to die,
Yeah.
just like you and your family. No. Yeah, great,
I mean,
great.
they make death very real in that show.
Yeah.
Like
Yep.
you can, nobody is safe, right? And
Yeah.
I love how they play
Besides
with that
Arya.
sometimes and-
Arya's safe. She has to be. Always.
Almost died like a dozen times.
Yeah, almost.
Yeah, remember what
She's
happened?
safe.
Remember what happened to Sean Bean?
Yeah.
And like most other people in the show.
Goddamn.
But let's not give away who else is still in the show for those
Yeah.
that haven't.
They
seen
should
it.
have.
Those
They should be
lucky
coming
few
out
that
with
still have to watch the
their
whole
new.
thing.
Okay, so let's go back to the question, and then we'll talk a little bit more about Game of Thrones and HBO
Right,
because I
good
definitely want to bring up that some of the stuff. What's the most inappropriate out of left field?
Okay. It's 300 Rise of an Empire, the second one. The second one,
The second movie.
you're like
okay.
30 seconds into the movie, maybe not even, and you just see like full frontal nudity, two men hauling away like a slave, and they're just like completely naked, and you're like,
Why are you doing this work naked?
it's just
What were you doing with that body?
okay, that's one way to look at it, but yeah, it's just kind of like, oh, okay, well, I mean, I guess I was expecting like not that right away, but
Yeah.
They
That's-
decided that they
that's
wanted an
there.
R rating, and that's where they got it. Nothing else. And throughout the movie, they're just like, MPAA, we got 2 dogs. R.
yeah,
Okay. I haven't seen that movie. I saw the first one. I always thought, oh, wow, 300. Meh. But
Wait, wasn't Sean Bean in the first one?
I don't know. He probably died if that's the case.
Yeah.
No.
I think that he was
Aha,
the one.
memes.
I think that he survived.
Did
Oddly
he?
enough, he
Awesome.
like dies in everything that he's in. But
He was Exorcist.
No, I
Xerxes?
could've been there.
No. What about you, Josh? What's the most like out of left field sex thing or sexualization that you've seen in a movie that was just like why?
Ooh.
I don't know.
Dr. Manhattan's dick doesn't count from The Watchmen. That was completely justified. Everyone needs a little big blue dong.
I don't know. I remember before actually watching Watchmen.
Yeah.
One of the kids in my high school class was like, "Oh yeah, like all it is just like Dr. Manhattan walking around naked." And when I watched it, and afterwards I thought about it, I was like, "Wow, he like, what was he watching?" Right?
Yeah.
No,
He was just
no,
watching
no
that
problem
scene
with
over
that
and
at all,
over
but-
again. It's like,
But
wow.
it wasn't like I was watching it and just being like, "Oh, there's Dr. Manhattan naked again."
Yeah.
And actually, for the most part, I'm pretty sure he like more of some kind of speedo thing, but like.
Yeah, which is kind of crazy. So like every time he's regular human size, he's totally in the nude. Instead, the only exception is when he goes to do that interview. But in the movie, when he's like giant over Vietnam, he has like his little speedo on because the size of his mile long dong would just like, because you basically just get a shot of his crotch as he's growing. It would just be like a pendulum swinging in the wind, and that's good movie making. And so they said no.
Did surrender.
We surrender to you and your mile long dong. So that was yeah.
I honestly can't remember.
You can't remember any sort of.
Watchmen was one of the ones that I thought of. I was like, it's not that.
Yeah. For me, it's
That crazy.
Star Trek Into Darkness. No, not Into Darkness. The second one. What was the second one called? The one with Khan.
Okay.
Was it?
Wrath of Khan?
No. The reboots.
Ah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Or no?
No, I
I
didn't.
can't recall. It's the second Star Trek movie though.
Yeah.
And it has Khan in it. I know that much. Into Darkness was the third one. I haven't seen it yet. I've heard good things, but they're going to go in like disarm some bombs that are going to kill a whole bunch of Khan's crew. And there's one particular new character, short-haired blonde, who's like the Confederation captain's daughter. and out of nowhere they're like changing like they're getting ready for things, and the camera just pans over to her, and she's in a bra and panties, and it's just like, why did you do that? Why did
Oh, I
you?
see. Yeah.
Probably
It was
for
just
the
it
same reason
broke
that
the
Thor takes
action
off his shirt.
so bad. No, because when Thor takes off his shirt, that's a part of the character. Is like, this is a ridiculously good-looking guy. This was just completely out of left field, and it also okay. So when
I
Thor
think
takes off his shirt, it's a part of the narrative. He takes off his shirt. Haha, that's funny. It's something that you went to because he doesn't understand because he's a god or whatever. But in this, they completely broke the action for the camera to pan over to a half-naked chick.
Okay, that's fair, I guess. I think you're giving Thor and his taking a shirt off a lot more plot than I think
I
it
want
probably deserves.
Chris Hemsworth
Yeah.
more and more naked is what I want.
Oh, that's fair.
Yeah.
But I don't recall either of those points.
No.
They were not important in the plot.
Yeah, no. It's
I mean, in Watchmen, not Dr. Manhattan, but what are the names? The Silk Spectre, and Night Owl.
Yeah.
Getting together in the ship was like
oh.
actually part of the plot.
Yeah, that was that's a part of the romance, but
And
I wouldn't
also
say it's a
really
part of the
well-
plot, but with Thor it's a part of the character is that he's kind of a little he doesn't conform to
not-
the same sort of conventions that we do, and he's a
Yeah,
little
he's from a
oblivious to
different
them.
culture.
And also he's ridiculously good looking. That's a part of the character. So
And plus, like, Northern Europeans are cool with all this stuff.
Yeah.
right?
and we can call him that even though he's from a different
He's a
world.
Norse god.
Yeah.
Where is he from? Norway?
I'm trying to remember what the planet is
Essentially.
called, but I can't right now.
Asgard?
Asgard.
Yeah.
There we go. Asgard. Hey, so do you read comics?
No, I would if I had
Yeah.
them, but
Viewcomics.com. Free comics. It's great.
oh yeah.
Yeah. And then I just like continue to go and see DC movies even though they're bad, and that pays for it in my mind.
Oh, The Walking Dead. Oh, best comic ever.
Oh yeah, I'm not caught up yet. I got to the part where something happened for people who are spoilers out there. We'll talk about it later. Good comic though. Yeah.
Yeah, I actually like read. Well, all I've read is just a few of like the more recent ones.
I'm probably
there's-
about 5 books from being caught up.
Nice.
Yeah.
But there's a large gap between where the show's at right now
Oh yeah.
and where I started the comics. So there's still a large.
But Terminus didn't happen in the comic books.
Oh, I didn't
If you
know
watch
that.
the movie. Yeah, I mean if you watch the television show,
I
Terminus
don't-
just didn't happen. Yeah. Well, I mean if you've seen the television show then you would already know what was happening in that story arc.
Yeah, true.
Yeah. I think that are you caught up on the television show then?
Almost.
Yeah, okay.
I haven't binge watched.
I know what happens after like
I have
I'm
a
caught
feeling
up on
I
the
know what
comic
happens
books.
afterwards, but
Yeah. There's a big part where they went to black when something was about to happen at the last episode of the
they do
previous
that
season.
every season.
Yeah.
I feel like.
Mm.
It's good. We'll see if they follow through and they're loyal to the comics.
And even if they're not, and I get to go read the comics and have a good time anyway.
Yeah, they're
It's
good
like
comics.
reading Game of Thrones.
Definitely.
There's no. When you translate something into film, you lose some of the plot and timing. I don't know how to say this. As the author, you just have like the perfect timing for everything, and
Yeah.
everything is just like perfectly executed in the written version or in the comic version. Maybe not perfectly, but I like the comics, and I like.
Well, I
the
think
books
one of the
better
reasons that
than
they
the film, but I
deviated
like the
from
films
the
anyway.
plot with the television show is because they had what I call Naruto syndrome, which is that they caught up to the comic book and they needed to do filler before so the comic book had to
Oh.
continue producing. The
Hmm.
arc that they're going to go into right now for the next season, from the content that they have right now for the comic book, they have maybe a season and a half to adapt. So
Right.
they had to fabricate an entire season in order to. It's basically
Oh,
the whole
like-
Terminus
yeah, yeah.
chapter within The Walking Dead is filler. It didn't
Really?
happen. Yeah, they just made it up.
That's cool.
Yeah.
'Cause it was actually good.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah. There's like, if you're a fan of, do you watch anime at all?
No.
No. So there was a very popular, critically acclaimed series that did something similar called Full Metal Alchemist. They deviated from the
Yeah, I've heard
comic
of
book because they went on and did their own shit because they caught up to the comic book.
Huh.
Naruto didn't do that. They caught up to the comic book and then just started making like episodes that were all comedy and non-canon. So
Oh.
yeah, so it
Weird.
didn't make sense. you got to see people who had died and they were like goofing around.
Huh.
Yeah.
Huh.
Not the greatest production choice of all.
Oops. Well, this
Fair.
thing happened with Heroes back in the day, right? There was a writer strike and things just kind of went to shit.
I saw 1.5 seasons of Heroes. I liked the first season, and I love George Takei, so I was watching like the second season almost specifically for him, and then it just dropped off the map for me. I don't even know. I think I got like 6 episodes into the second season and quit.
Yeah, I don't
They had
know
a Stan Lee cameo though in the first season.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah, Stan Lee. It was a Marvel-esque property. So,
I had no idea.
Mark, what kind of comic books are you reading nowadays?
I'm afraid I don't read any comic
You
books.
should. There's some great ones out there. Don't you like Alan Moore? Like you read V for Vendetta, didn't you?
No.
No.
Did you know that he really didn't like the films?
I wouldn't be surprised, but
very
it's not
different.
because
He
of.
didn't even watch Watchmen. Like after
I wouldn't be
watching-
surprised.
After watching League of Extraordinary Gentlemen and V for Vendetta, he just like
I thought that League for Extraordinary Gentlemen was fine as a movie. I didn't like
I haven't
V
actually
for
read the
Vendetta.
comic, so really.
Yeah, I didn't like the movie. I liked the book, the comic book.
Oh.
No,
I
but I
haven't
didn't
read
like the V for Vendetta
either of
movie.
those,
I thought it was dumb.
The movie's weird. I watched it once and I was like, that was a movie.
Well, it's kind of like an action like superhero.
And then
movie.
like the next morning I woke up and I like made myself breakfast and I'm like, I want to watch a movie, and I watched V for Vendetta immediately again. And I watched it and I was like, oh my goodness, this makes so much sense. This is brilliant. And I was just like thrilled with it the second time I watched it for some
Right.
reason. And now I just kind of like the movie, and I'm like, I don't even know why this is, but apparently, I thought of it overnight and then figured out all the missing plot points and just put it all together like some great puzzle the next day when I watched it.
Wait, so have you read the?
No, I haven't read the.
Oh, okay. Because I haven't read either of League or V for Vendetta, but I've
Have you read The Killing Joke?
no.
Batman comic. Yeah, it's like 60 pages long. They just adapted it to an animated film. Rated R. Rated
Oh,
R
really?
animated film. It's not great, but it's like a 60-page comic that they adapted it from, so
Right.
they had to basically make 2 movies because they only had really like 50 minutes of content, and they had to make it into an hour-and-a-half movie.
Oh.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like V for Vendetta would do really well as a television show series. Like, read the comic
Really?
book; it's really good. Yeah, I feel like League of Extraordinary Gentlemen could maybe do like 2 movies, like a movie and a sequel, possibly.
Well, there's
But
only got
yeah.
the one down, but
It has a lot
Sean
of the
Connery
literary
for sure.
allusions.
Right.
That was a good choice. I like Sean Connery in that movie.
yeah.
Yeah, the movie overall was interesting enough, but yeah. And then I was okay with Watchmen. The thing is just like Alan Moore's work doesn't adapt well to the screen. It just doesn't.
Yeah, and I mean he had that whole weird arc with the like marooned guy and stuff from Watchmen. Have you read Watchmen?
I've read parts of Watchmen. I haven't read it all. I read parts.
Yeah, I can't remember what the guy was called, but it was like a parallel story.
Yeah, it was a comic
was
book
the-
inside of a comic book instead of a comic book, yeah.
Yeah, and like when you see, and I think they did one little cameo in the film where they had the newspaper stand and the guy, they get blasted away or something. But that's the comic within the comic, and I can't
Yeah.
remember what it was. But it's a parallel of everything they do in the film, or everything they do in the real life. and
Yeah.
the alternative history of.
I understand that.
Right.
Well, right now what's kind of happening that's really cool with DC is that Watchmen is a part of DC.
Yeah.
And so, but it's in the multiple worlds theory kind of DC, it's completely removed from the main canon. And so in the most recent iteration of DC Comics, which is called Rebirth, they had the new 52 for a long time. They dropped the 52, and now it's Rebirth. And it's possible that the reason that Rebirth is happening is because Dr. Manhattan is entering the DC world, like where Batman and Superman is.
Real.
Yeah, because at the end of the
I studied this in English class in first year. I didn't get a good grade in English, but I learned a lot about Watchmen. But it was you have like Superman who like never changes, and
Yeah.
he just like beats all the enemies, and it's all happy and good, and you can start off the next story, and all the stories can run in parallel, and it doesn't matter because at the end of the day, he does the exact same thing. He wins. Everybody, all the bad guys lose. And that's like the golden era, right? Nothing changes. Everything's happy. And then in Watchmen, it was like, in some stories you had like, things aren't all good at the end. And in Watchmen, you have like, you don't even know who the hero is at the end anymore.
Right.
You're just sitting there and you're like, oh my, like it worked, but what the shit just happened?
Yeah.
And so it was, I think that was like the Iron Age of like comics, where you don't have like yeah, you kind of have the Superman, right? But you have like all this politics, and like Superman doesn't deal with politics at all, right? And
Not very well. He does in the modern age, which is
Oh, yeah?
sometimes called the Bronze Age. You have the gold, the silver, and the Bronze Age, or
Right.
I would say you have the gold, silver, bronze, and then the modern age, which is what we're in right now. But yeah, it's just really cool to see how things are working with that. Maybe we'll see some actually good movies coming out. I'm really excited for the Ben Affleck directed, Ben Affleck Bat
Oh,
flick.
Ooh,
So,
yeah.
Yeah, we'll see how
One
that's
with,
going. Anyways, though, it is now about 8:30. We're about 30 minutes
man.
over the regular
Okay.
running time.
God.
So, yeah, it was great having you on, Josh. Thank you for coming on and talking about a whole bunch of really great stuff. We talked about jiu-jitsu. We talked about films. We talked about dicks. It was awesome. So once more, if people wanted to learn more information about jiu-jitsu, get in contact with the club, or try it out, what would be the best way to get in contact with people, or to try out jiu-jitsu?
Well, there is a Trent Jiu Facebook page. You could also just go to the AC, like the Trent AC, at 8:30. Well, aim to
A
be
little bit
bit
before
early.
8:30.
Yeah. You know, dress
On Tuesdays and
in-
Thursdays?
on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And the first 2 classes are free.
Yep.
Yeah, so you can go and
Try it out.
try
Come
it out.
Find out if
and-
you like it. There's lots to learn, so make sure you make it out to both classes so you find something you like. And
Yeah.
it's pretty neat.
All right. Well,
People are always on about trying new things and getting fit. So I mean, there you go.
It's a great way to
birds,
do
one
it.
Stone.
And then
or
you'll be
one
that guy in the
fist.
horror movie that at the end of the movie comes in, he's like, "Oh, this is like a boom," and just nails the.
Yeah.
All right. Well, fantastic. Thank you so
Defeat
much,
the villain.
Josh. Thank you again, Mark.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no
thanks
problem.
for
So
having
come
me.
and join us next week. We'll have a brand new set of guests on who are going to talk about LARP, I think, right? So we'll get that
LARP and
going.
D&D, I hear.
Yeah. But until that time, I've been Tyler Hole. You've been Mark Ellis. Thank you, everybody out there in TV land. You enjoy the rest of your night. Bye.